Her father laughed bitterly. She tried to speak, but the truth was too heavy for her mouth. All she could say was, "I am afraid." This is Chiamaka's story. Her father laughed bitterly. "Save yourself from what?" Chiamaka's mouth opened, then closed. The truth was too big. The words were too heavy. But she tried. "I am afraid," she said. "Afraid of what?" Nnamdi asked. "Of leaving my home. Of a man I do not know. Of a life I do not understand." Her voice was still gentle, but each word was clear. Someone whispered, "She's only a child." Nnamdi pointed toward the door. "Go back into that room," he said. "I will deal with you later." Chiamaka shook her head. "I will not go back." The room became louder. People were talking at the same time. "This is bad. This is not good. The groom is waiting. What will people say?" Her father stepped closer to her. "You think you can stop this wedding?" he asked. Chiamaka lifted her face. "Yes." He stared at her. "You have no power," he said. "You are a child. You eat in my house. You wear clothes that I buy. You live under my roof." Chiamaka listened. Her eyes were full of tears, but she did not cry. She only said, "Yes, Papa." He smiled without joy. "Then you will do what I say." Chiamaka breathed in slowly. She remembered her school. She remembered her small drawings. She remembered Chinelo's face. She remembered how she wanted to become a nurse. She remembered the bird on the wire. She remembered the quiet nights in her room. She lifted her head. "Yes," she said softly. Everyone leaned forward. Then she added, "I do." Her father frowned. "What do you mean?" Chiamaka looked straight at him. "I have a choice." His eyes became sharp. "You do not." Chiamaka's hands were shaking, but her feet were firm on the floor. "Yes," she repeated gently. "I do." The words fell into the room like drops of rain. Slow, soft, but strong. Her father laughed again. "You are embarrassing yourself." Chiamaka shook her head. "I am not embarrassed. I am scared, but I am still saying no." Ifunanya held her head. "Oh God." Ngozi whispered, "This is a disaster." Uche covered her face. Outside, a loud voice called, "Is everything ready?" No one answered. Nnamdi's jaw tightened. "You will regret this," he said. Chiamaka felt her heart twist, but she did not step back. "I will regret it more if I go," she said. People looked at each other. No one knew what to say. Her father pointed at her dress. "You are already dressed." Chiamaka looked down at the white cloth. "Yes." Then she looked back at him. "Clothes do not make a marriage." Someone inhaled sharply. Her father's hand trembled. "Stop talking. You are making things worse." Chiamaka lowered her voice even more. "I am not trying to fight you, Papa. I am only telling the truth." He shook his head. "You are stubborn." Chiamaka replied quietly. "I am only trying to be alive inside." Silence spread. Even the fans stopped humming. Her father looked around. He saw the faces, confused, worried, curious, ashamed. He did not see one face that cared about how his daughter felt. He turned back to her. "This wedding will continue," he said. Chiamaka shook her head slowly. "No, Papa." He raised his hand slightly. People held their breath, but he dropped it. Not because he understood her, but because people were watching. "You will come outside now." Chiamaka took a step forward, but not toward the canopy. She stepped to the side, away from the door that led outside. Nnamdi noticed. "Where are you going?" he asked. Chiamaka answered calmly. "I am staying here." "You cannot," he said. "I can," she replied. Her voice was almost a whisper, but everyone heard it. Her father leaned close to her face. "You belong to this family." Chiamaka nodded. "Yes." Then she said, "But I still belong to myself." A soft sound moved through the room, like wind, like breath. Her father pulled back. "You are talking too much." Chiamaka bowed her head slightly. "I am finished talking." Then she stood quietly, in her wedding dress, in front of everyone, not as a bride, but as a girl who finally said no. The house was very quiet, too quiet. Chiamaka was still standing in her white dress. Her heart was beating fast, but her face was calm. People were still looking at her. Her father, Nnamdi, stood close to her, breathing heavily. Outside, the guests were waiting. The groom, Chibuzo, was still under the canopy. He did not know what was happening inside the house. Chiamaka looked around the room slowly. She saw her aunt, Ifunanya. She saw Ngozi and Uche. She saw neighbors and cousins. She saw many eyes, but she was looking for only one person. She looked toward the small table near the wall. A brown envelope was resting on it. Her hands began to shake. She walked slowly toward the table. Nnamdi noticed. "What are you doing?" he asked. Chiamaka did not answer. She picked up the brown envelope. It was thick, heavy. She held it tightly. Ifunanya spoke quickly. "Chiamaka, please stop all this drama." Chiamaka turned and faced them. Her voice was gentle. "This is not drama." Uche frowned. "Then what is it?" Chiamaka held the envelope up. "This is the reason." Everyone became silent again. Nnamdi's face changed, very slowly. "What is that?" he asked. Chiamaka looked at him. "You know what it is, Papa." Nnamdi shook his head. "You don't know what you are saying." Chiamaka did not reply. She walked toward the door that led outside, toward the canopy, toward the groom. Her white dress brushed the floor softly. People moved out of the way. Some looked confused. Some looked afraid. Some whispered, "Where is she going? What is happening?" Chiamaka reached the door. Sunlight touched her face. The music outside became soft and slow. Someone announced quietly, "The bride is coming." People stood up. Some clapped gently. Some smiled. But when Chiamaka stepped outside, she was not smiling. She was holding the brown envelope in both hands. Everyone could see it. The groom, Chibuzo, stood near the small table in front. He was tall. He wore fine clothes. He looked surprised when he saw her walking alone, without her father, without the women, without dancing. Chiamaka walked slowly toward him. The sound of her shoes on the ground was small, but it felt loud inside her head. Chibuzo smiled politely. "You are finally here," he said softly. Chiamaka stopped in front of him. She lifted her eyes. She looked straight at his face. She did not smile. "Good morning, sir," she said. "Good morning," Chibuzo replied. He looked behind her. "Is everything okay?" Chiamaka took a deep breath. She raised the brown envelope. "Please," she said quietly, "take this." Chibuzo looked confused. "What is this?" "Please read it," Chiamaka said. Some people leaned forward. Nnamdi rushed outside. "What are you doing?" he whispered angrily. Chiamaka did not look at him. Chibuzo hesitated. Then he slowly collected the envelope. He opened it. Papers slid into his hand. Many papers. He looked at the first page. He frowned. Chiamaka stood very still. Her heart was beating hard, but she did not move. Chibuzo's eyes moved across the paper. His face began to change. He stopped smiling. He looked up at Nnamdi, then back at the paper. "What is this?" he asked slowly. Nnamdi forced a small laugh. "It is nothing important, just old documents." Chiamaka spoke. "They are not old." Nnamdi turned to her sharply. "Keep quiet." Chiamaka did not stop. "They are from 3 months ago." People started whispering. Chibuzo looked at her. "3 months ago?" he asked. Chiamaka nodded. "Yes, sir." He looked down again and continued reading. The wind moved the paper slightly. He held it tighter. His forehead began to shine with sweat. "What is this amount?" he asked. He read a number, a very big number. People murmured. Ngozi whispered, "That is a lot of money." Chibuzo raised his voice slightly. "Nnamdi, what is this?" Nnamdi swallowed. "It was a small help," he said quickly. "Just a business problem." Chiamaka spoke again. It was not small. Everyone turned to her. "You borrowed a large sum of money from him."
Her voice was soft, but everyone heard her clearly. Nnamdi shook his head. "Stop talking." Chibuzo lifted his hand. "Let her speak," he said. Nnamdi froze. Chiamaka took a small step forward. She looked at Chibuzo. "My father borrowed money from you," she repeated. "Months ago." Chibuzo's eyes became hard. "You borrowed money from me?" he asked Nnamdi. Nnamdi nodded slowly. "Yes." The guests gasped. Chibuzo looked down at the paper again. "There is a date here," he said. "Yes," Chiamaka replied. "That was the day he signed." Nnamdi shouted softly, "Enough!" But no one listened. Chibuzo read another line. "And this condition?" he asked. His voice dropped. Chiamaka closed her eyes for a moment. Then she opened them. "When he could not pay you back," she said quietly. "You both agreed on something else." The crowd became very still. Chibuzo lifted his head. "What are you saying?" Chiamaka looked at her father, then back at the groom. "My father offered something else instead of money." Her lips trembled slightly, but she continued. "He offered me." A loud sound moved through the crowd. Some people cried out. Ifunanya gasped loudly. Ngozi covered her mouth. Uche whispered, "No, no." Nnamdi shouted, "Shut up." Chibuzo stared at Chiamaka. His face turned pale. "You," he said slowly. Chiamaka nodded. "Yes, sir." Silence fell like heavy rain. Chibuzo looked at the paper again. His hands were shaking now. He flipped through the pages. Then he stopped. He pointed to a place on the paper. "There is a name here." Chiamaka nodded. "That is my name." He read it slowly. Chiamaka Nnamdi. He stared at it. He read it again. Then he whispered, "This is not a marriage paper." Chiamaka shook her head. "No, sir." Chibuzo's voice became low and cold. "This is a contract." Chiamaka nodded again. "Yes." The crowd began to murmur loudly now. What is happening? She is on a contract? This is not right. Chibuzo read another line. "This says guarantee." He stopped. He lifted his head. "What does this mean?" he asked. Chiamaka swallowed. Her throat felt dry. "It means, if my father does not pay you back," her voice almost failed her, "I become the payment." People gasped again. Nnamdi rushed forward. "This is a lie," he shouted. "It is not like that." Chibuzo turned to him. "It is written here," he said. He tapped the paper. "This is your signature." Nnamdi opened his mouth, then closed it. He looked at the crowd, then at Chibuzo, then at his daughter. Chiamaka's eyes were full of tears now, but she did not wipe them. She continued. "My name is not written as a bride," she pointed gently. "It is written as a guarantee." Chibuzo looked at the paper again, slowly, carefully. His lips moved as he read. Then he whispered, "This is true." Someone in the crowd cried softly, "This is terrible." Ifunanya covered her face with both hands. "Oh God," she said. Nnamdi shouted again, "Everyone should stop this madness." But no one listened. Chibuzo stepped back slowly. He looked at Chiamaka. His voice was no longer proud. It was low. "You knew about this?" Chiamaka nodded. "Yes, sir." "When did you know?" 2 weeks ago." "How?" Chiamaka looked down. "I found the papers in my father's bag." Nnamdi's body stiffened. Chiamaka continued. "I did not understand them at first, but I took them to my teacher, Mrs. Chidimma." People murmured again. "A teacher?" Chiamaka nodded. She read them for me. She explained them to me. Chibuzo swallowed. And what did she say? Chiamaka lifted her eyes. She said I was written there like a thing. Her voice became smaller, like a house, like land, like a car. Tears fell from her eyes, but she did not stop talking. She said I was not written as a person. The wind blew gently across the canopy. The papers moved softly in Chibuzo's hand. He looked at Nnamdi again. You used your daughter as a promise? Nnamdi shook his head wildly. It was not like that. It was only to show seriousness. Chibuzo's face turned hard. You promised me a human being. Nnamdi's voice dropped. I only wanted to save my business. Chiamaka whispered. You wanted to save yourself. The words hung in the air. Chibuzo closed the envelope slowly. He held it tightly. He looked around at the guests. Then he looked back at Chiamaka. His voice was slow. This wedding, he paused, never was a wedding. No one spoke. It was a debt settlement. Chiamaka nodded. Yes, sir. Her knees felt weak, but she stayed standing. Chibuzo turned to Nnamdi. You never told me she did not agree. Nnamdi looked away. Chiamaka spoke. He did not ask me. Chibuzo breathed in deeply. He looked again at the papers. Then he said quietly, I thought I was coming here to marry a girl. He shook his head. But I came to collect a debt. He looked at Chiamaka. And you, his voice became softer. You were written like money. Chiamaka whispered, yes. The crowd was silent. Even the children were quiet. The music had stopped. The chairs stood empty. The food waited. The decorations shone in the sun. But no one was celebrating, because everyone could now see the truth. The papers in Chibuzo's hand were not for love. They were not for marriage. They were for payment. And on those papers, clearly written in black ink, was the name of a small girl, not as a bride, but as a guarantee. The wind moved softly under the canopy. The decorations still shone in the sunlight. The chairs were still full. The food was still hot, but the happiness was gone. Everyone was quiet. Chibuzo was still holding the brown envelope. The papers were inside. His face was serious, very serious. Chiamaka stood in front of him. Her white dress was a little dusty at the bottom. Her hands were hanging at her sides. Her chest was moving up and down slowly. Her eyes were tired, but she was not weak, not anymore. Her father, Nnamdi, stood a few steps away. He looked smaller than before, not because his body changed, but because the truth had become bigger than him. Chiamaka turned slowly. She faced her father. Everyone followed her movement. All eyes turned to Nnamdi. The sound of the street outside faded away. The world seemed to stop. Chiamaka spoke. Her voice was calm. Not loud, not angry. Very steady. You didn't arrange a marriage. People leaned forward. You settled a debt. The words moved through the air like slow thunder. No one spoke. No one coughed. No one shifted their chair. Even the children did not move. Nnamdi opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Chiamaka continued. You borrowed money. She did not point. She did not shout. She only spoke. You signed papers. You put my name there. She looked straight into his eyes. You used me to cover your failure. A soft sound came from the crowd. Someone whispered, Jesus! Ifunanya pressed her hands together. Ngozi's face was wet with tears. Uche held her chest. Chibuzo stood still. Chiamaka did not look at anyone else. She kept her eyes on her father. You didn't ask me. You didn't warn me. You didn't protect me. Her father's lips began to shake. You only prepared me. Nnamdi finally found his voice. Chiamaka. His voice was broken. Please. She lifted her hand gently. Let me finish. He stopped talking.
Her voice became softer but stronger. When people came to our house, when they praised you, when they said you were wise, I thought you were saving our family. She shook her head slowly. You were saving yourself. Nnamdi lowered his head. Chiamaka continued. You told me to obey. You told me not to talk back. You told me not to shame you. Her eyes filled with tears, but her voice did not break. Papa, the shame was not my fear. The shame was your choice. A small cry came from Ifunanya. Oh God, she whispered. Ngozi's face was wet with tears. Uche held her chest. Chibuzo stood still. Chiamaka did not look at anyone else. She kept her eyes on her father. I am not land. I am not money. I am not a bag of rice. Her voice was gentle, but each word hit hard. I am your daughter. Nnamdi covered his face with his hand. Chiamaka continued.
You taught me how to greet elders. You taught me how to sweep the floor. You taught me how to be quiet. Her voice trembled slightly. But you did not teach me how to protect myself. People nodded slowly. Some wiped their eyes. Chiamaka took another step forward. I believed you when you said this marriage was good. I believed you when you said it was a blessing. She shook her head again. It was not a blessing. It was a payment. The words were slow, clear, heavy. Chibuzo looked down at the envelope again. He held it tightly. Nnamdi's shoulders shook. His voice came out very low. I did not want to lose everything. Chiamaka heard him. She nodded. Yes, you did not want to lose your shop. You did not want to lose your name. You did not want to lose respect. Her voice softened. But you are ready to lose me. That sentence broke the silence. A woman cried out softly, My God! Nnamdi lifted his head. His eyes were red. My daughter. Chiamaka did not step back. You didn't sell your land. You didn't sell your car. You didn't sell your house. She paused. You sold my future. The crowd moved slowly. People whispered to each other. Now they understood. Not just the papers. Not just the contract. They finally understood the heart of it. The wedding was not about love. It was not about family. It was not about honor. It was about fear. It was about money. It was about a man who chose himself. Chibuzo finally spoke. His voice was deep and cold. Nnamdi, he said, I trusted you. Nnamdi did not answer. You brought me into your home. You invited my family. You made this look clean. He lifted the envelope. But this is not clean. Nnamdi's mouth opened again. I was desperate. Chiamaka spoke quietly. You were silent. Chibuzo turned to Chiamaka. His voice changed. It became softer. I am sorry. Chiamaka nodded. I know. He looked surprised. You know? She nodded again. Yes. You did not know the whole truth. He breathed in slowly. You are very brave. Chiamaka looked down. She did not feel brave. She felt tired. Very tired. Chibuzo turned back to the crowd. Everyone should listen. People straightened in their chairs. This girl was not brought here to be married. He raised the envelope. She was brought here to pay a debt. A heavy sound moved through the crowd. Some people shook their heads. Some covered their mouths. Some looked at Nnamdi with new eyes. Chibuzo continued. I will not take her. A few people gasped. I will not use a child to recover money. Chiamaka closed her eyes. Relief moved through her body like warm water.
Nnamdi looked up quickly. Chibuzo raised his hand. But the debt remains. Nnamdi froze. Chibuzo's voice was firm. You borrowed the money. You signed the papers. You must pay it. Nnamdi nodded slowly. Yes. He did not fight. He did not argue. He knew. Chiamaka watched him. For the first time in her life, she saw her father clearly. Not as a strong man, not as a strict man, but as a frightened man. A man who made a terrible choice. Chiamaka spoke again. Her voice was gentle. Ba, you did not arrange a marriage. She paused. You settled a debt. And for the first time in that house, in that street, in that family, everyone finally understood. This wedding was never about love. It was never about family. It was never about honor. It was about a man who chose himself.
Moral lesson. This story teaches us that every child has a voice, a future, and the right to say no, even when the people around them are powerful. Doing what is right is not always easy, but it is always better than doing what is convenient. A child's life should never be the price for an adult's mistake. Hope begins when someone finds the courage to speak the truth.